Thank you. Can you hear me? Great. Hi, welcome also on my behalf, and great to see so many of you here today. My name is Tommi Rapeli. I'm a creative director at Fake, and for some of you, Fake might be a bit more familiar from our high-end visual stuff for advertising and corporate communications for even a bit more traditional media. But however, for a few years now, we've been investing our resources quite heavily on understanding and also building capabilities of utilizing this new interesting means of communication called VR, virtual reality. And as much as high visual quality means to us, for our tradition, after all, it's pretty futile if you ignore completely all the other important aspects of user experience in VR. Basically, the other things that are important are the stuff I'm going to talk to you about today. How to get past and how to actually be able to communicate for the people having a VR experience. So. I'll be using a project called OP Liikenneteko as an example. We produced it during this spring. And this case has several sort of design things or things that needed to be considered that showcase my points I'm going to talk about pretty well. So that's the reason for using this case. And for those of you who are not familiar with this project, I have a short video. Just a clip showing what's it all about. Yeah. So, to the enthusiastic first meeting about the project. It was going to be the Traffic Safety Act of the century. It was commissioned by OP Financial Group with Milton. The main objective of the mission was to evoke tolerance in traffic. It's going to be a nationwide roadshow, being a pretty important thing to consider making this thing. There was lots of different things thrown around. Definitely wanted really immersive VR. One important thing was that whoever experiences this thing, it's not going to, he shouldn't get some sort of behavior that's unwanted as a result. For example, parents driving their children to the school and not letting them actually walk by themselves or whatever. This is something I didn't say myself. This definitely shouldn't be boring insurance company stuff. This was from OP. And also important thing to think and understand was that as the VR is extremely immersive and powerful experience, it's pretty easy to do something quite scary and leave for the experience a pretty bad feeling coming out of the experience. So we needed to consider that it needed to have impact, but it shouldn't be too strong in a wrong way. And the all-important question, why? The main objective, why this experience, this thing should be done? Of course, to give people an experience, allow them empathy and sympathy to understand other people using roads and how they perceive the world. But of course, what's important is that should support OP brand to be communication that would be good for the brand value of OP. And also another important question, another why question is why we are. Virtual reality is not a silver bullet for everything and the best way to communicate every possible thing. So it needs to be thought carefully. Is this thing that we're talking about, that we want to show, is VR the thing to use? And for evoking emotion, allowing sympathy, we were quite sure that VR is a good way to communicate things this time. Because it's communicating with experience. It's quite different thing than showing a film or reading about something, because that's telling. And experiencing things by yourself, it leaves quite different mark in your mind. That's the reason why you hire people that have actually done some work and not just read about it. It's exactly the same thing. There's a reason. And just as a quick side note, VR is a term that's pretty blurred on the edges. What's called VR currently, it's quite different things in technical sense, how you produce them and what the experience is going to be. And on this project and on this talk, I'm concentrating more on my decryption quadrant on the right top corner of room scale virtual reality, which currently is the most immersive thing that you can do. So, distilling the things after the first meeting, what were the key things, key factors that we needed to consider? At that point, we thought and we're told that there should be 3 different road users in the experience: a driver, a cyclist, and a pedestrian. So it's a bit no-brainer to do some sort of experience with an intersection, a crossroads. You should evoke empathy, so it's seen through somebody's eyes. Okay, this is probably a first-person view experience. Okay, yeah, let's start with that thought. It's going to be a roadshow with audience that most of them have no experience in VR. There are quite a few of people that are not especially computer savvy, let alone played computer games or whatever. So this is definitely an important consideration. And also on the roadshow, if you think that one experience would take, for example, 10 minutes, then if you have 6 people online, the 7th coming to the line would wait for an hour to get the experience. So we needed to create something that you can run quickly and predictably through the crowd. And also, there shouldn't be anyone blamed in a situation that we are showing. There shouldn't be an evil car driver not caring about other people or whatever. It needed to be something that you could relate to. And of course, not something that would be so scary that you feel bad coming out of the experience and thinking that, okay, now I'm going to have nightmares for the rest of my life, brought to you by OP Group. That's definitely something that we wouldn't want to do. All right. The user experience and storytelling, starting with the thought of first-person view. What would it mean? What would it do? All right. A driver, a cyclist, pedestrian, that would mean some sort of, because it would be pretty distracting, driving a car, not having a wheel standing, then pretending you're riding a cycle and whatever. So there would have been a need for some sort of props, and that would mean pretty complicated facilitation of the roadshow and the actual experience. There would be lots of transitions for different things. So most of the time you would be transitioning from different position to other. Doesn't sound too good. Doesn't sound too good at all. The time machine problem, if the content would be in different phases. For example, you're driving a car, but how should you react to you walking later on that you haven't actually walked yet. There's a small problem in the idea. And there should be a child involved in a story. Okay, let's just make you the size of a child, and then you're a child. But is it actually so? Isn't it actually you being just smaller? You actually bring all your knowledge of a traffic, all your understanding and all the baggage that you are as a person. That's not the experience of a child, isn't it? So doing that, we would have ended up with something containing a time machine problem that solving that would give me a Nobel, something that would be really hard to facilitate, and an experience of you being less tall than you are, but still you. It doesn't work. And this mess, would this be a good brand communication for OP? No, I don't think so. So, what we are going to do? This is the first person view. Let's do something completely different. Think different. So, what would it be? Virtual reality. Is reality... Does it really have to be so real? We can basically do anything. And reality, when you come to think of it, reality, isn't the reality when I'm walking to the office in the morning, isn't the reality for me a bit different compared to when I'm rushing from the office to pick up my daughter, being in a hurry? Isn't the thing that I experience, things that I think, aren't they a bit different actually? The reality of that certain moment is different. So we came up with the idea of a concept of subjective and objective world. So the world around you in a certain situation is always subjective. It contains things that affect you and what's on your mind. And then there's the objective world where nobody actually lives. And also at this point, we decided that 3 different experiences or points of view would be the maximum that we could give in a short time scope in an experience. So we decided to ditch or actually combine the cyclist and the child. And so we decided to create and think about that how would we present the experience and world of a child, the objective world, and the world of about man about the age of 35 with children, with busy work, and all the things that are in mind of that kind of a person. And show them in one space where the world collides, their worlds collides. And I have a quick preview that's exactly what we did, and a preview how it looked like in our experience. But yes, thinking further about aside on storytelling and the user experience, the technical side from the point of view of people having the experience. Again, the roadshow, lots of people, most people having the experience for the first time. We opted for the HTC Vive as a technology to use this time. It's readily available and it's robust, works pretty well, very well actually. It has excellent controls that you have in your hands. There's lots of articulation, things that you can do with those controls, but at the same time, for a first-time user in a limited period of time, they are quite complicated to understand. And also, as many of the people having the experience, they are probably not used computers that much. Virtual reality is even further, and actually, have they actually ever played a computer game? So complicated game mechanics would be a quite steep learning curve for them in the experience. So what would we end up with doing something like this? Probably a user feeling insecure, feeling kind of stupid, feeling maybe actually being in fear. And would that be something that OP would like to pay for? Probably not. So, what to do? What if we just ditch the controls completely? thinking of what is a way of interacting that is pretty familiar for everybody. Walking, isn't it? Everybody hopefully knows how to walk when you come to the experience. And actually, as we don't have the controls in the hand, the experience works very well even if you're having a wheelchair. So that was also a plus for this thing. We understood that there needs to be some sort of a tutorial scene for the thing. We can't rely on things in, for example, Steam, the setup scenes in Steam or whatever. We don't have time for people to delve through on them. Them alone would take like 10-15 minutes. We thought that we need to limit the interaction to the things that we definitely need, not anything extra, something that you can get lost on. And also how the story would be told. VR is typically an experience of exploration, of interesting exploration. It's pretty easy to get stuck on watching the dandelions on the grass. And it's hard to predict how long somebody might be in an experience. So we needed to control the time, how long it takes to have the experience. And thinking about the idea of subjective and objective worlds, we came up with this pretty esoteric idea. What if we make an exploration in time and realities? And no, we weren't high on anything when we were thinking about this. We are just like this. So the idea was that in the middle of the area, there's the ground zero, the time of accident, of an impact. And going to either direction from the point, you'd actually control time. Time starts to go backwards. And when you come back, you get to the impact point. And at the same time, as you move, on the other side, you see what the child experiences in traffic. In the center, at the impact point, you'd see the objective world that nobody actually lives in, and on the other side, the experience of an adult driving a car. And sounds interesting, but and really cool. But would this actually work? How would we know if this works? There's only one way to know. It is to prototype, make a prototype out of it. So we decided to make a prototype of the time control. And wonder, it was really, really great. It was really, really cool. It was surprisingly easy for people to grasp the control, even for the first timers. And we were like, yay, we're definitely onto something now. And well, the idea was pretty far off from something that was probably expected us for us to do. So we needed to explain this idea for Opie and Milton. And luckily, they trusted us and said, okay, sounds pretty weird, but continue, please. And that's what we did. We added another layer to the prototype of the reality control. And that too worked quite well. Especially for people with more experience in VR, that worked really, really well. People in first time in VR, for some, not that well. But when we brought the design constraint of the available space on the roadshow for the VR experience, because some of the points in locations in roadshow were in outdoors, so the whole thing was in a tent, and the size we had available for use was 3 meters and 3 meters. So when we had the time control, reality control, all the thing crammed in that space, it started to be pretty hard to understand. You easily get stuck into the exact point of changing the world, and didn't work too well. So what to do now? Dead end. It's time to kill your babies. So we got rid of the reality control. It didn't work, and what's the point of having time control anymore? We cut that off. So what did we ended up with? Hey, cinematic storytelling story going from show this part of reality, so show how the events went further and what happened, and that's it. And we've done this for 20 years. It's smooth sailing from now on. We know this. But really, can somebody tell me what's one of the key differences in VR and traditional film? I'll give you a hint. It's the user. And by clueless cameraman, I'm not saying that people getting into VR experience, they are stupid. And I'm not implying that. I'm saying that they are in front of technology and way to operate and use that is completely unfamiliar for them. And even if it's familiar for them, they experience VR users. Think that you would put an excellent camera operator in an action scene in a film, say, roll, and you don't tell him that what's going to happen next. Probably it's not going to be best possible visual storytelling that you're going to get. The person doesn't know at all what actually is going to happen next. So these were the things we needed to tackle. Okay, we were even more sure that we need to have some sort of a training and tutorial phase for the thing to explain how all these interaction things are working and sort of ease in people to the experience. And we did some testing with the content we had at that time, having nothing as a tutorial. And what we ended up with was interesting war stories. Cognitive load. The thing when you just thrown into the scene, the impact is really, really great. You're like, wow, what just happened? And literally, you could change basically everything in a scene. You could change the building right in front of you to the gingerbread castle, and people didn't notice it. That it's just were so astounded of just being there. Some people got into the fight or flight mode. Basically, everything felt like a threat around them. Even if you would have nice My Little Ponies coming to you, they were like, ah! What's happening? Some people just paralyzed there. Some with a smile on their face, and some just being blank. What's going on? So, are we going to get any storytelling through them like this? Probably not. Having different kind of tutorials, we started to hone and test what would be a good solution, what the tutorial would need to be what should be inside there. And I think we managed to nail how it should work pretty well. But actually, even when we thought that this was ready, everything is okay, we got in the situation of obedient spectator syndrome. Basically, I'll show you. In the end of the tutorial, just before the actual content is starting in the OP Liikenneteko, we instruct the user. We've just told them that, hey, you can walk, you can do whatever, and we are checking that they actually do everything and they are comfortable and relaxed, and so on. And just before we begin the actual content, we say to the user that, hey, there are footsteps on the floor. Go there, and then the actual content is going to start. And the reason for the footsteps that we wanted to know where the user is on a tracked space, that we were sure that nobody is going to walk outside or basically get to the chaperones, the things that tell you what's the safe area. That was the reason. And what we got with, I'll show you that little part.
Maahan on merkitty jalanjäljet. Kun olet valmis aloittamaan, astu jalanjälkien kohdalle niiden osoittamaan suuntaan.
So, what did this do? Most of the people, everything was fine, but there was a significant percentage of people that basically got glued in the floor when you said that there's footsteps on the floor. They just stood there. And if something happened behind their back, they were like this. So, Details are very important, and you need to test them to understand what exactly will happen if you do this or this or this. And important thing for tutorial, getting people into the scene, sort of getting them relaxed and feel good, is to have a gradual immersion. Start with something simple, something basically what we did, that you feel like you're in front of a TV set. That's not completely another world first. Then we start to bring things that are more interesting visually, that sort of makes you easier to walk around, something interesting that you can go to see close by, and then build gradually the stuff and ease you in, tell all the interactions one by one, so you feel confident and good about the experience. And all the content on this kind of a tutorial, the thing is that people are not going to remember pretty much anything about it. So all the content there should be expendable, no storytelling there. And what we have at this point is a person hopefully pretty prepared for your message, what you're going to tell them in a VR world. But we still have the part on the clueless cameraman, that where to look, how to know what's important in a scene. And that requires a solid plan for directing attention. One way is what I call a brute force, using arrows. Hey, look at here, walk here, sort of telling exactly what to do. And do blackouts, move the person around, float around the scene, and that's actually something that's pretty much the worst thing that you can do. There's a term for that. It's involuntary movement. That sort of implies how it feels like. It's not a pleasant experience for a person to be controlled that way. And then there's the other part, the more important part, and that feels more pleasant, because the brute force things, again, comparing to the goals that we needed to have, a good experience, good brand message, that forcing people to do stuff, that wouldn't be too good. Subliminal suggestion, using audio and using all the visual stuff and thinking how you build them to actually enable you to tell the story. In visual stuff, arranging everything in a way that it leads your gaze to the direction you want, bringing using movement as a thing to grab attention, using actors and the distance to evoke the attention to them. And also about the distance, in immersive VR, the personal space is actually an issue compared to film. So if you come really, really close with something, that feels quite heavily. You actually, it can be quite intimidating, or at least it's very strong. So you can use it, but use it cautiously. Audio, as our Chief Technical Officer Juha says, if the visuals are the 60%, the audio is the other 60% of an experience. Especially the spatial 360 3D audio. Hearing is just probably for evolution. If you hear something behind you, you typically start to look at what's happening there. You can really guide a person's gaze, orchestrating audio and video in a certain way, and also using audio as a reactive element to the gaze and what people do in an experience. So using these means to actually tell the story, show the stuff you want to do. This is the best way to do things. The spirit guide for the brute force. That was also something we thought of using. Basically a spirit that tells you, okay, here, look at here, and I'm showing you this thing now. And luckily we didn't have to use that. But okay, the VR is quite new, interesting thing in a world. The vocabulary isn't that established, and for this experience that we did, we needed to build that, how things sort of show for people having an experience, how we are going to address you on this one. And there are only few best practices known currently, and I'll show you one example of a best practice here. We needed to, because if you remember, we had that pretty limited space of 3 meters for the experience, and normal crossroads is much bigger, so we needed to move the person a couple of times in experience, and that's the involuntary movement. That's really dreaded thing. Nobody likes to have that. So one things that you can do is exactly the correct speed for movement, making sure that the person is looking directly to the direction he or she is moving, and also making a tunnel vision. And on the example, you can see it's very exaggerated on this movement, but when you have the headset on, you actually don't notice it at all. And all this, what do we have? What's this that we built? We built the possibility to actually deliver the message. Now we get to the storytelling. Now that's the thing, how you touch the minds. But I think that's a topic for a completely different talk. And I've understood we have other talkers here delving pretty much further on that, how to leave a mark in a memory, how to touch people's minds with VR. But that's all from me today. I thank you for your attention, and have a demo, please. We have the set here, so check out the OP experience. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Tommi.